I beat it. Good morning, everybody. Hope you all are having a humpalicious hump day on today. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. And today we are going to be continuing with our work on the quadratic formula. Now, I noticed that you may have noticed that some of the problems don't look the same. And they don't. They're not supposed to. We are going to be looking at, the different formats that the quadratic equations can take. Okay, so I just want to make that very clear. A lot of times they're not always going to be the way that you recognize them. Okay, but again, as I always say, no worries. Once you recognize how to manipulate them, solving them will be a breeze. I promise. All right, so without further ado, I picked a couple of problems that you may see, you may not see, and we're just going to go ahead and manipulate through those and get it started. All right. So for number seven doesn't look like any other problem that we've seen before. We are used to this format, and I'm going to type, hey, toolbar, I'm going to go ahead and type the format that you're normally accustomed to, which would be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So that's what you're used to seeing. You're used to seeing your quadratic equations written like ax squared, like a number x squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are coefficients. For number seven, that doesn't look like that. Okay, so again, you want to make sure that you recognize what's the quadratic equation and what is not. And again, normally with the quadratic equation, you're going to see a number with a variable and it's going to be squared. Okay, so this is what we would have to do. Remember, all quadratic equations must equal 0. I don't make the rules. I don't make the news. I just report it. So why do they have to equal 0? I don't know. But what I do know is this. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I lock this in place so that way it won't move all over the place. All right. So what I would have to do, I need to move this 18 over to this side of the equation. So the way that I would simply do that is I would just subtract 18. Now, if you notice, there is no other number that's over here that I can subtract 18 from. So if it helps you, you can look at it in this way. Now, if it helps you to write the missing, I guess, term to replace it with 0, you can do that. Me personally, it wouldn't benefit me any, but if it helps you, you got to do what works for you. So when I do this, that means I can now subtract 18 from both sides. So I hope everyone can see what I did there. And when I do that, I'm going to write my answer over here. I'm now going to have 8n squared minus 4n minus 18 equals 0. Okay, so that is what, so I'm going to use this equation right here. I'm not going to use this original equation. The only time I use the original equation is when I am substituting my answers back in to check my work to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. All right. So now we're simply going to use the quadratic formula up here to figure out what our answers are going to be. So who can tell me what A is going to be represented as? I'll go ahead and write them out this time. Ah.
A is gonna be 8n squared.
Yeah, it's going to be 8. Okay, so just remember, we only want the numbers. Okay, so for B, what number is represented by the letter B?
4.
-4, but I'll take it. All right, and that is so ugly. I knew I should have typed it. I really honestly knew I should have typed it. Okay, and what about C? Ah,
-18.
-18. So these are the numbers that I'm going to be using in my quadratic formula to solve. Okay. So as always, the good news is I don't have to rewrite that because it's already up there, and I'm just going to write my problem out. Now, if you've already done this particular problem, this is just another way to check your work. So we're just going to work through these. I have a couple more problems that I want to show you the different formats of how they could look, but we are going to still work these things step by step, piece by piece. Okay. Do, 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 do. All right. So I have -4, because remember, B is negative, but because I have a negative B here, I have to put a negative, which will turn into a positive momentarily. Okay. And that's going to be plus or minus the square root of -4 squared minus 4 times 8 times -18. And all of that, and yes, I said all of that is going to be over 2 times 8. So again, if you all would like to follow my cursor, you're more than welcome to do so. Wherever I see A, I am going to substitute it for the number 8. So I put my number 8 here, and I put my number 8 there. Wherever I see the letter B, I'm going to substitute the B for the -4. So I put my -4 here, and I put my -4 here. Wherever I see the letter C, which is only one spot, I am going to substitute it for the number 18, and that's what I did up there. Okay. So now I'm just doing regular schmegular math at this particular point. So,
So you have to use that formula.
yes, sir.
Okay.
All the time. Now remember, I'm not Dr. Hampton in mathematics yet. I'm kind of working on it, I guess. But once I can thoroughly explain why things are the way that they are as it relates to math, I will come and find y'all and let y'all know why. But until then, I'm like y'all. I'm just All right. So two negatives make a what again?
A positive.
A positive. So my -4 is now going to turn into a +4. Okay. That's going to be plus or minus Negative 4 times negative 4 is what? Okay. It's 16. Remember, two negatives multiplied together is a positive. Okay. Now, we have negative 4 times negative, I'm sorry, negative 4 times a positive 8, and that gives us a negative 32. Now, negative 32 times negative 18. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, so I'm going to put on my calculator here. Or I'm not sure if y'all can see my calculator if I pull it up there. Um, but if not, it's okay. So we have negative 32, and that's going to be multiplied by negative 18. That gives me a positive 576. So now when I multiply all of these numbers, the negative 4 times my positive 8 times my negative 18, that gives me a positive 576. And all of that is going to be over 2 times 8, and that gives me 16. Remember, as you all continue to work the quadratic formula, you're going to see your answer get smaller and smaller and smaller. Remember, simply because the quadratic formula is nothing more than a fraction. And what do we do with fractions? We want them to be smaller, smaller, smaller. We want them to get as small or reduce them as much as we can. Okay. So let's see. I think I have enough room to write this. I think. Okay. So I have a positive 4 plus or minus the square root of 592. I want to make sure that that's right. So I'm going to say 576, and I'm going to add that to 16. I was right. So my answer is 592. Okay. All right. This is where it gets real interesting. And this is the other reason why I'm going to charge you all to memorize square roots and squaring, because that's definitely going to help you with this part of learning quadratic formula. The square root of 592, that's going to give me a decimal of some sort, simply because 592 is not a perfect square, meaning that it will not give me a whole number that's going to be multiplied by another whole number to give me 592. So what does this mean as it relates to the answer? Well, this is what it means. Your answer is simply going to be this. Really? Okay.
So Miss Hunt,
Yes, sir.
so you have to use that formula every time?
Whenever you're working with the quadratic equation, yes, sir.
Okay.
So I don't want you to be intimidated by all of these things that you see. And I say that respectfully because again, I know that this looks like it's a lot, but remember, if we look at it as what it really is, which it really is a fraction, if we look at it as a fraction, then we can understand and be like, okay, well, because this is a fraction, my mindset is I have to change my mindset and think about it like a fraction. And my goal with fractions is to make it smaller. So that's really all you're doing, if that makes sense. So this is my answer. Now, I will say on your math GED exam, they're not going to have the answer out like this. And technically, that's not the right answer either, but I don't want to be too technical today. They're going to have 4 plus the square root of 592 over 16 and 4 minus the square root of 592. Now, let me also say this. Please don't actually find the square root of 592 because that's going to be a decimal. We don't really like decimals, not with quadratic formula anyway. So on your test, your answers are probably going to look more so like this. Okay. So your answers are going to be in twofold. Your answers are going to be a positive answer. Are you? Come on now. All right. And your answer is going to be this way.
Excuse me, Miss Hampton.
Yes, Miss Philomena.
That's good. It's very clear. But I want to ask in subsequent questions where you have imperfect square roots, is the answer still going to look just like this at the end where you have imperfect square?
Okay, I want to make sure that I'm understanding your question. You want to know what
If
is
in,
it about the square root? Because I heard you, but I didn't hear you. It was kind of like a in and
yes,
out.
I got you in the conclusion of the answer here, but I want to find out in other subsequent question where you end up having imperfect square, the answer is still going to be just like this. We are not going to use the decimal.
Okay. Well, to make things very easier and for the sake of what we have to accomplish, this is what your answer is going to look like.
All the
They
time.
are, yes, ma'am. So they're not going to go any further with finding the, you know what I'm saying, finding the square root of this number and then you add it or subtract. They're not going to do that.
Okay, okay,
Yes, ma'am. They want to keep it as simple and as sweet and as to the point as possible.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, no problem. So just remember on your math GED exam, when you're working with the quadratic formula and you get a problem sort of kind of like this, it's okay for you to have an answer that's like this. Okay, it's okay. Sometimes your answers, ooh, that's ugly. Sometimes your answers are not always going to be whole numbers. Sometimes your answers are not going to be fractions. Sometimes your answers are not going to be negative and or positive. They're going to look like these, and that's okay. So if you find yourself like, oh my God, this answer looks really weird, um, chances are it's supposed to be weird looking. Okay, so again, I don't want you all to be intimidated by what you see.
Excuse
Did
me.
you have another question, Miss Philomena?
Yes, ma'am. So,
Okay.
in any question with that is not equal to zero, so that means definitely we have to bring it down to get equal to zero before we use the quadratic formula.
You mean for like for this particular
Like that
problem?
number 7 years, it's not equal to zero.
Okay, yes, remember all quadratic equations equal zero.
Okay,
This one, this one equals 18. So
okay,
this would technically not be a quadratic equation because it's not equal to zero.
okay. So we have to bring it up to zero.
Yes,
All right, thank you.
yes, ma'am. You would have to bring this number over to this side, and you would have to do that by by completing the or I'm sorry, not by doing the opposite. So because this is a positive 18, you have to subtract negative 18. Now remember, you're not going to subtract negative 18 to 4n because those are unlike terms. You cannot subtract unlike terms. So what you're simply just doing is you're just moving this number over, over it to, and you're going to put it here. Okay, so that's the reason why I also said if it helps you to write a 0 here, because all quadratic equations look like this. Okay, so if it helps you to write a 0, so that way you can, still keep that same format, then you can do that. Okay, and see what I did over here was I just subtracted 18 from both sides, and so now I have 0 minus 18, and it gave me this negative 18 over here. So this would be the equation that I would use for my quadratic formula. Okay, so again, we're going to continue, and I'm going to show you different ways that you can manipulate the equation, or you can move certain things around to still get the 8x squared plus bx plus c equals 0 format. Okay, so again, they're not always going to be in the normal format. So it's going to be your responsibility to make sure that you recognize the normal format and the not so normal format. But either way, you have to use the quadratic formula. Okay. So please let me know. I don't know if you all are taking notes or if you all are watching the playback video. If you're watching the playback video, you are more than welcome to pause this video at this time and take your notes, do whatever it is you got to do. But as far as the class is concerned, please let me know when it is okay for me to go on to the next slide, because I have a couple more problems that I want to do with you all.
I'm good.
All right.
1 more second.
Oh, all right. So we got the four amigos in the building. Okay.
Okay.
All righty then. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. All right. Oh. All right. Here we go. Here. All right. So now I'm going to go to this next problem. And again, these are problems that were on your worksheet. So if these problems were giving you a little bit of trouble, you got the help today. See, this is what I do. All right. So again, number 9 is not written in the same format as the regular schmegular problems. Okay. Um, so that means I'm going to have to move some stuff around. So what do you think that I would have to move around in this particular problem?
The 9.
Okay. I can move 9. I can do that. What else can I? Is that it? Can I move the 9, or do I have to move the 9, or I'm just
The
asking. I just want to know what y'all think.
the 9 and the X.
What number
Yeah.
are you in?
What was that, Miss Philomena?
What number?
We're on number 9.
Okay. I think we move the X.
Okay. Now remember, you cannot have a negative. This number cannot be negative. Okay, because that will cause a whole bunch of other problems, and we are not ready for that. So I'm going to rewrite this problem to where you all can recognize it. Okay, so there is an X that's missing over here, right? So what I've done, I simply just put a 0 in place of that. So of course, I know this looks like the word ox, but it's really 0x. But there's no such thing as a 0x. I'm just using 0 as a placeholder to show you all the regular format. Okay. So I am going to move this x over here. Okay, so I'm just going to move, I'm just going to make an arrow and I'm going to put it right there. Okay, so when I do that, I now have this. Okay, so I'm just going to subtract x, right? So that's kind of what that looks like. But when I finish, I'm going to put my answer here because I need room. I have 10x squared minus x plus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, so does everyone see what I did as it related to the x? If you don't see it, tell me so.
I don't see it, man.
Okay, all right. Uh-oh.
I see.
You see it? Now remember, if you don't see it, I got one. I got Mr. McFadden that said he didn't see it. But have anybody else that don't see it? All right. Sorry, y'all. People act like they know I'm working. I don't get it. Okay. Anyway, so we started off with 10x squared plus 9 equals x. So remember, all quadratic equations equal 0. So I had to move my x to this side. Now, when I do that, that's going to cancel out, and that's going to give me the 0 over here that I want. And all I simply did was change this positive x to a negative x, and I put it in the middle between the 10x squared and the positive 9. So that is this result over here. Okay, so now do you
Yes,
see it? You see it now, Mr. McFadden?
yes, ma'am.
All right. Now remember now, if this stuff is looking like Spanglish, speak up and say something. All right. No big eyes and no little U's in here. All right. So now that I've gotten all that fun stuff out the way, what number represents A?
10.
10. Excellent job. All right. What number represents B?
1.
-1, but I'll take it.
Okay, -1.
Yep. And what number represents C?
9.
Now,
Positive 9.
Yep, that's it. So now those are the numbers that I'm going to use in my quadratic formula. And as always, I'm just going to write all this stuff out because that's just what I do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. La, 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 la. Ooh, 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 ooh. Look, look. These people know I'm working. I don't understand why they texting me. Goodness. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all weren't supposed to hear that. All right. So I have -1 plus or minus the square root of -1 squared minus 4 AC. And again, all of that, yes, I said all of that, is over 2 times A. So again, wherever I see an A, I'm going to substitute it for the number 10. Wherever I see a B, I'm going to put my -1 in place of that. Wherever I see a C, I'm going to put my 9. So now, again, we just have regular schmegular math. All right. So remember, two negatives give me a positive. So now I have x is equal to a positive 1 plus or minus the square root. And the goal is also is to get rid of the square root. But as you can see, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Negative 1 times negative 1 gives me a positive 1. And I have a negative 4 times a positive 10, which gives me what, negative 40? Somebody fact check me on that just to be sure.
-40.
Okay. Now I want you to say negative 40 times a positive 9. Negative 40. Isn't that negative 360? Yep, it is negative 360.
Yeah.
All right. Ooh. And then we know that 2 times 10 gives us 20. What is 1 minus 360?
Negative negative 359.
Absolutely. Do 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 do. La 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 la. So I have a question. Can I take the negative? Can I take the square root of a negative number?
No.
So because I cannot take the square root of this negative number, that would be considered what?
Your final answer.
Well, technically it is my final answer, but this would be non-factorable. Okay, so this would be non-factorable because I cannot take the square root of a negative number. It don't work. It just don't work. Well, I don't want to lie to y'all, but for the sake of conversation, for this particular math class, you cannot find the square root of a negative number. You actually can do it, but don't worry about it. I'm not teaching it to you. You don't have to know it. Just know that you technically can, but for all intents and purposes of this class, you ain't got to worry about it. Okay. So it is non factorable because I cannot take the square root of a negative number. I can't do it. Okay. So that would be my answer, is non factorable. Okay, so I'm gonna give you all a moment to process it, take your notes. If you have any questions, I'll wait for you. We're making some good time. Yes, Miss Philomena.
So in this non-factorable answer, so that means it will not have two answers, positive and negative.
No, ma'am, it's non-factorable, so there is no answer.
Okay.
Because remember, when you have a negative number under this square root sign or this radical sign, or radicand is one of those, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So whenever you come across this, make sure you go back, make sure that you didn't do anything wrong, okay, with your arithmetic, okay? Because a lot of times when we rush through things or when we, man, I really got it, and we come here, we get, oh, it's non-factorable. But you have to make sure that you are very strong in your arithmetic as it relates to working out the problems under the square root. Okay, that's very, very important. Okay, but in this instance, we took our time, we did everything we were supposed to do, and this is what our answer is. It's non-factorable. We can't do anything about it. Okay, so let me know when I can continue and proceed with the next problem.
Miss Hamp,
Yes, sir.
Is there is there a formula sheet that we can get emailed to us, like with the different formulas on it?
Well, it is Mr. McFadden. And see, okay. I don't know if y'all remember this, but I gave you all the mathematical GED formula sheet. I am pretty sure that all of those things are in your folders, which are at the school. Because
Gotcha.
again, we did not know Auntie Rona and Uncle Virus was gonna come in here and wreck shop. We didn't
Yeah.
know that. So, but what I can do, I will
I
be
have
more.
mine with me. I have
Oh,
mine.
okay. Well, see, you good to go. But for
Yeah.
anyone else that needs the sheet, you can actually Google GED mathematical formula sheet, and it will come up. Or I will be sure to leave the link in my pinned comment section. So once I upload this video, so that way you all can have it. But yeah, so that's the sheet that I always, give my students. So that way they can recognize and memorize what formulas to use. Okay. For anybody that's watching the playback video. Um, so yeah, so that's good. But I'll be sure to make sure that you all have that information as well. Or if you want to take it upon yourselves to Google it and download it for yourselves, feel free. No problem. Feel free. All right. So how are we coming along? Is it sort of sticking? Is it unstuck? Talk to me.
We getting there.
Okay.
It's
I'll
okay.
take that. Oh, what'd you say, nephew?
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Remember, no news is good news to me. So yeah. So again, you got any questions about anything, please feel free to ask. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the next one. All right. Let me know when you all are ready. I think we got like maybe two more problems after this, and then we'll be done.
Ready.
All right. Let's get
Miss
it.
Hunter, can we do number 10? Oh,
Look
never
at
mind.
see, look at you. You know, I'm going to say this on camera. You August people are very ambitious. There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm here for it. Your birthday is in August, right, Mr. McFadden?
Yes, ma'am.
I know it. I know. I could get your blood type in your social too. I mean, I know everything really. But nonetheless, shout out to the August people. You all are very ambitious.
Thank you, Miss Hunter.
Very welcome. But see, I had not see I felt it in my spirit that number 10 was gonna be for you. So I put it in there. See? I be knowing. Now we have a situation with number 10. We have an n squared is equal to 9n minus 20. Now I'm gonna go ahead and tell you this right now so it won't be a misunderstanding. Um, you are not going to subtract n squared. So if you were thinking that, don't do that. Remember, you want everything to be, you want your first term, which is the squared term. You want that term to be positive. You don't want it to be negative. Otherwise, it's gonna cause a lot of problems. And I don't want them kind of problems for you. I don't. So what we are going to have to do is we're going to have to move two things over to this side, okay? So the two things we're going to move our 9n minus 20. We're going to move that. Let me see. We're going to move all of that to this side. Now, how in the world do we do that? Well, it's simple. I am going to subtract 9n and I'm going to add 20. And I'm going to simply move all of this over on the side with the n squared. So when I do that, this is what I have. I have n squared minus 9n plus 20. And that's equal to 0. Okay, so does everyone see what I did there? If you don't see it, tell me so.
I see it.
Okay. Do I have another? Feel like I'm in church. Do I have another? Well,
One more time. Son.
okay. All right. So what I did, Mr. McFadden, what I've done is I simply just moved my 9n minus 20. I moved that over to other side where n squared is. The
Mm-hmm.
way that I did it, I had to subtract 9n because remember the goal is for me to get 0 on one side, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So when I did that, I made my 9n negative. So that's where this negative 9n came from, okay? Because I simply just moved it to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And because I moved it to the left, that automatically made it negative. You with me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I had to do the same thing, but this time I have a negative 20. So in order for me to move my negative 20 over
Gotcha.
to the left hand side, I had to add 20.
20.
So when I cancel these things out right here, that's going to give me 0, which is this over here. Okay. So when I move this negative 20 over to the left side, my negative 20 turned into a positive 20 because I added it. I just moved it over and I did the opposite. Does that make sense?
Yes, man.
Okay. All right. So now we cooking with gas. So now that we got all that fun stuff out the way, who can tell me what my numbers are represented by these letters, starting with A?
A is 1,
A is 1. Very good, Miss Philomena. Okay. What about B?
-9,
-9. And what about C?
20.
20. All right. Excellent job. Okay. 1920. Okay. I see you. 1920. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. All right. So, with that being said, now I'm simply just going to substitute my numbers for all of the letters in the regular schmegular quadratic formula. And this is what I have. Do 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 do. Hope you all are enjoying my nice music here. La 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 la. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. La 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 la. Oh, that's ugly. It's real ugly. La 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 la. All right. Yeah, I really don't. And Robert, before you say anything, I want to hear it. Know what you're thinking? It's fine, Miss Hampton. It's not fine. It's
Okay.
cricket. It's cricket. All right. All right. So now this is what I have. I have a -9 plus or minus the square root of -9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 20. All of that is over 2 times 1. And again, I know this looks real crazy, but I promise you it's really not. I promise you it's not. All right. So now I got to simplify some stuff. I got to get some stuff out the way. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Negative times a negative gives me a
Positive.
Positive.
positive. So that means this negative negative 9 is now a positive 9. Okay? What is negative 9 times negative 9?
Negative 81.
Negative 81. Wonderful. All right. So now somebody tell me what is negative 4 times 1?
A positive 4.
No, not a positive 4.
Negative.
Remember, that's right. We have a negative 4 times a positive 1 that gives me a negative 4. I want you to take that negative 4. I want you to multiply it by 20. Oh, manicure.
Negative 80.
Negative 80. Okay. Very good. All right. So now all of this is going to be over 2 times 1, and that gives me 2. Now, what is 81 minus 80?
1.
1. Oh, well, this is going to be real simple. See, you're going to see how real easy this stuff is getting ready to be. And that's that is unacceptable. I'm not going to have it. Okay. All right. So, what is the square root of 1?
1.
1 and
0.
so I have 9 plus 1 over 2. And remember, square roots have 2 answers. So I have a positive 1 and I have a
And a negative 1.
exactly. So I have 9 plus 1 because 1 is positive, and I also have 9 minus 1. Oh, well, this is simple at this point. 9 plus 1 is 10, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that's one of my answers. 9 minus 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2, 4. So, Ms. Hampton, what does all of this mean? I done took 11 years to solve this problem. What are you telling me? What I'm saying to you is this. 5 and 4 are your answers for that particular quadratic equation. And if I were to put either of those numbers back into the original equation, they should equal each other. Now, if you want me to prove this, I can. I mean, you know, I ain't got no problems with it. I guess y'all don't want me to prove it. Okay, that's cool. All right, but do I have any questions so far as to how we came up with the answer?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And if you
Now,
don't say, huh?
now is those steps going to be required on the test also? Like the last step?
Well, in order for you to get to the answer, you may have to do all of this. But that's why we're practicing now. We're trying to sharpen our skills. So we have to take this opportunity while Auntie Rona and Uncle Virus is still acting a plum nut. We still got to take this opportunity to perfect our skills.
Well, the reason I asked because we didn't do all that on the last problem. That's why.
Oh, I see. Let's go back to the last problem. The reason why we didn't have to do all of that on the last problem is because we had a negative square root. So whenever you have a negative under this square root, you're not going to be able to do all of those other steps. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense? So
Gotcha.
that's the reason. So that's the reason why we stopped at this particular step, because we can't take the square root of a negative number.
Okay, I got you now.
All right. So again, they're going to be written in different formats, as you see on the paper that I emailed to you, or the worksheet that I emailed to you. But it's going to be up to you to make sure that you understand the different types of formats and how you move stuff around, how you maneuver stuff around. And so that way you can get them in a proper format so you can proceed with the quadratic formula. Okay. Now it's 11:53. Yes, 11:53. All right. So I have two more problems that I wanted to do. I wanted to do number 11 and I wanted to do number 13. Do I have anyone that's already worked on number 11 or attempted to do number 11? I guess
No,
not.
ma'am.
Okay. I mean, y'all can tell me no. What am I gonna do? Can I get mad? I can't get mad. So, no. But the reason why I'm asking is because I saw number 11 and especially number 13. And oh, I had one more problem. Number 15. I saw these three problems and I said, yeah, we definitely need to work on these problems. But this is what I'm going to do as it stands. We're going to save numbers 11, 13, and 15 for tomorrow's session. Okay. I do not want to overwhelm. I do not want to, overwhelm you all with all of this stuff. So this is what your assignment is going to be. I only simply want you to work on, I think it's numbers 1 through 10. Do I have anybody that's worked on numbers 1 through 10 already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to revisit numbers 1 through 10, and I want you to check your work and make sure that you got the correct answer. Now the answer sheet is provided for you as well. So if you want to use that to check your answers, totally fine. No, that's why I sent it. No problem. Because again, I don't want to overwhelm anybody, and plus we got 5 minutes anyway. So I just want to try to end it on a nice, clean note, if you will. So, but how do we feel about today's lesson as it relates to the quadratic formula and manipulating through these quadratic equations? Scale of 1 to 10.
A little bit better. 9.
Okay. So you say you at an
I,
8, Robert?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. What about you, Miss Philomena?
Good. But I need to practice more on turning it to quadratic formula.
Okay. All right.
Not
So more
quadratic,
practice.
now equal to zero. I need to practice more to convert it to zero.
Okay. All
Mm.
right. No problem. All right. So you just need a little more practice. And what about you, Mr. McFadden? How are you feeling?
It's getting better, Miss Em.
Okay. Now remember, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen. Well, I ain't gonna stop the screen share. I'll stop it in a minute. But remember, we ain't got nothing but time. Where are we going? What in the world are we doing? So remember, please, 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 please. I'm going to upload this video as quickly as I can so that way you all can go back and take your notes and rewrite some stuff. Do whatever it is you got to do. But I encourage you, please take this opportunity to, to study, getting a little extra study time, making sure that your foundations are really, really strong. in this stuff because again, when these test centers open back up, which by the way, I do not know when that's going to happen. When these test centers open back up, I want y'all to be ready. I want y'all to be like, I'm finna take my test tomorrow ready. Like that's what I want. Okay. So please take this opportunity to, to sharpen your skills and make sure that you're watching the playback videos and you're doing the assignments. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Where am I going? What am I doing? I ain't got nothing to do. Okay. So I'm accessible. I'm here. And I just want to say thank you all again so much for just, rocking with your favorite nerdy educator. I really do appreciate y'all. I really do. That's real. It's in my spirit. All right. So, do y'all have any other questions for me? Or y'all good?
We're good. Well, I'm
All
good.
righty. So I want you all to practice 1 through 10. We'll go over that tomorrow, and then we'll do those other 3 problems. Okay. So until tomorrow, I pray you all have a wonderful hump day. Be good. Wash your hands. Stay out of trouble, and just pray for everybody. All right. And we are out of here. Bye.